Hi, everybody. We are back. It is the, believe it or not, 24th episode of Life Possible with a Disability. I have a guest today that I've been wanting to have for a while. And due to, his mostly my mistakes and the fact that Josh is a busy guy, we are finally getting this done. So I'm very, very excited. Welcome, Josh.
It's great to be here today, Karen, and I'm glad it worked out, and it worked out perfect timing. We're here.
I know. That's right. Oh, I love that. By the way, I was doing like my research and looking up all of your stuff. I saw a video that was on YouTube. You were the cutest little kid ever.
Thanks. I owe it all to my parents. So
yes, they're cute too. And you have a sister?
I have one older sister.
Yeah, she's beautiful. Okay, so Josh Basile is my guest today, and he has many things. Josh is a trial attorney. He does lots of nonprofit work. The founder of Spinalpedia, Determined to Heal. He is an inventor. He's golf must have been. I know he played college tennis. And obviously enjoyed golf as well because he has created, he's the inventor and holds patents for, I think, 2 different pieces of equipment for golfing.
So Slingshot Golf.
Golf.
The pendulum putting device that helps anybody that's paralyzed or really anybody that wants to play the game of golf to do it in a new, different way. And it's a device that swings back and forth on a frame structure, and a protractor's on it, so you can measure. If you want a 1-foot putt to a 150-foot putt, it's pretty fun.
That's amazing. It makes me want to try. I live in a subdivision that has a golf course. I don't belong, but I was terrible. I'd like to say that I was terrible at sports when I could walk. But I really feel like I'm better now that I'm paralyzed. When I do try something, I feel like I'm a little more successful. But
you're approaching it at a new angle, and it's sports in general. I loved them before my injury. I love them after my injury. Just being able to compete and get out there, and really any excuse to get out of your home, I think, is a good one.
Right. That's what I was thinking, because I love the golf course. My father played golf, my brother, my boys play golf. And it's really more about like just being outdoors. And typically, it's golf courses are such a beautiful space to be, and it takes a long time to play. So, you're out there for a while, and I think it's good for the body and the soul.
Absolutely. After my injury, I had to find a way to get back out there, and luckily I had a dream one night and kind of invented the putter, and then we figured out how to hit the long ball, which is with a slingshot. And I have my caregiver hold it in their hands. I tell them the height, the line. If they pull it to their chest, it can go 100 yards. Pull it to their shoulders, it can go 140 yards, and just it launches in the air. And even paraplegics that have their upper body strength use it. Taking about 150 families out to play the game of golf.
I should get my hands on a couple of those devices and do some videos. I would love to do that.
When you're in the DC area next, I'm taking you golfing.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so great. I love it. So I guess, and then you do, in addition to you work for a prominent law firm, you were magna cum laude in your law school class, right?
Yes.
You started, I could go on, and I will go a little bit on and on, but you clerked for Senator Tom Harkin.
It's one of my heroes.
Yeah, right. And he's a champion of people with disabilities.
Yeah, the ADA, Senator Harkin was a force behind making that happen. And so he was the chairman of the Senate's health, it's called Health Committee. So it's the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee. Basically, really anything of value to getting through Congress really usually has to go through that committee that really impacts disability as well. But he made sure that any legislation that he would put forward always had a disability component added to it, so that it kind of came full circle, which in law school, clerking for him was an incredible experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. And not everybody gets those, you were doing all of these amazing things, and you earned all of these these positions that you ended up holding. And then I also thought it was senior editor of your law school review. And you founded the first District of Columbia Student Trial Lawyers Association.
That was fun. It was just being able to get students involved and caring about kind of diving deeper of what does accessibility mean and what are the laws behind it? How can we enforce it? How can we bring compliance and knowledge to kind of the world around us? So it was an incredible experience.
Well, like it actually makes me almost cry. Like just to see what you've done since your injury. So I guess I'll let you tell the story about how old you were and what year it was and how you acquired your injury, and then we'll just go from there.
Perfect. Yeah, my life was literally flipped upside down at the age of 18. So this was back in 2004. I just finished my freshman year of college and was on a vacation at the beach in Delaware. And while I was in waist high water, I turned my back to the ocean and put my guard down for a second, and a wave just picked me up, threw me over my boogie board head first, and I slammed head first against the ocean floor. And I just remember hearing a loud crack, and then I was floating. I couldn't move, and I was face down in the water, so I wasn't able to scream for help. And luckily, I was there with a bunch of my friends, and they saw me floating. They pulled me to shore, and it was a start to a new life. I was a C4-5 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders. When I made it to the critical unit, I was on so many drugs that I just was out of it. I didn't really remember anything until like 14 days in.
Wow.
And when that happened, because I had a ventilator in my neck helping me to breathe, I couldn't speak. So all I could do to communicate was blink twice for no, or blink once for yes. And it was when I did regain my voice, I decided that every word from that moment on would count. And that's the day I became an advocate for life.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives me chills. So I think when I became injured, I was 19, and I'm way older than you, but I knew that I needed to use it for something, and I knew that there had to be a way to use this for anybody who was going to come into these circumstances after me. And so it was either going to get a social work degree or a law degree too. I ended up going the social work route, became a mother. I think when I started grad school, I had a 9-month-old. So I needed kind of to be close to family. And so, but yeah, I remember those similar feelings and what you've done. I think you realized, I read somewhere you realized early on that how important mentorship is when you first become injured or you acquire your disability, whether that's through a disease process or an injury. But so that motivated you to start. I'm going to name several things, and then you can kind of take it where you want to. But so Spinalpedia, Determined to Heal, and then and more recently, you are working with Accessibility in other ways to make things accessible. But I also see on their website they use mentorship sort of as a to open that door and make it relatable to other people.
Mentoring mentoring defines me. Like it's one of those things that there's no reason that anybody in this world has to like do it alone. And for me, like mentoring is, especially with the spinal cord injury, it's about not having to reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has already done it, has figured it out, or tried it in different ways. You don't have to learn it by yourself. You don't have to be on this journey by yourself. So like early on, when I was first injured, I learned and spoke with Tim Strachan. So he was injured 10 years before me. He was an All-American football player. There was 5 quarterbacks in the country that were All-Americans and he had a full ride to play at Penn State. And he ended up going to the same beach as me, dove headfirst in the water, and broke his neck.
Wow.
And then he ended up going to community college, then to undergrad, then to law school, fell in love, got married, and had kids. And I was just like, if Tim can do it, I can do it too. And it gave me confidence. So much of life is confidence. And if you can figure out kind of what's possible, well, especially with Tim, like I just really followed in his wheel tracks because he showed the way. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to share. I know you know this, but share this with the world. But like next month, I'm going to become a dad, and all those things along the way are things I dreamed of conquering and making happen. And it's just little by little, with hard work, with incredible family support, the system in general. Like I'm a product of the vocational system of my state. They
Mm-hmm.
help me with getting through community college. They help me with undergrad, getting the different technologies, assistive technologies to access the classroom, access my homework, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And then with law school and everything else, there's incredible programs that exist in every single state so that you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And so with the mentoring side, I realized early on that so with Determined to Heal, I wanted to simplify the transition into life with paralysis for newly injured families. And I started doing it with my story. I ended up writing like 130 different pages of life, daily living, everything about
Wow.
my world. And as I was mentoring families, I quickly learned like my story is very unique to my level of paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And every level of a spinal cord injury branches out to a different body part, different sensation. And everyone is a little bit different, even at the same level of injury. So
Yeah.
that's when Spinalpedia came about, and that was in 2007. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to organize content and videos and break down each one by physical functionality so that
Mm-hmm.
there would be mentors within that unique world that you could filter through. And as of today, I think we're up to more than 21,000 videos broken down by physical functionality.
Wow.
You go in, put your functionality in, and you can be matched with 500 different mentors or 500
I
different
need to get added. I have a bunch of videos
Oh,
from.
you're already up there. And
Okay.
that's the thing. We take them from around the internet.
That's
So if they're
awesome.
uploaded on the internet, we try to go find them, and then we break them down into different categories and subcategories, so they're easier to search and
Yeah.
find.
That's very cool.
So
And
that's
what's different about Determined to Heal versus like Spinalpedia?
so Spinalpedia is just a product of Determined to
Of
Heal.
Determined to Heal, it's
Yeah,
part of the under the umbrella of.
it's our mentoring platform. And
Okay.
then Determined to Heal, we do other things. We do a lot of advocacy efforts around changing the Medicaid buy-in laws to help workers with disabilities. Every state can have their own Medicaid buy-in, and so 45 out of 50 states have Medicaid buy-in programs. And basically, it allows people that need to keep their Medicaid but want to
Mm-hmm.
work, and it's for workers with disabilities to pay a small premium to join that program and work above the income and asset limits that otherwise Medicaid would kick you out if you're employed.
Which states aren't in it?
So
Do
I
you know?
know, unfortunately, Louisiana,
Louisiana.
yeah,
Yeah.
the District of Columbia is a jurisdiction that doesn't have it. Florida doesn't have it. I believe Hawaii doesn't have it, but I think they're working on making it happen.
I wonder what I could do. Like this is like, I know off the topic, but I probably need to. I got a governor's advocacy award this last year, but it's kind of insane that it's probably something I need to work on here.
All you need to do is get a champion in your state in the state legislature. So a
Okay.
senator and a delegate represent your state to sponsor the bill. And we actually just submitted a bill in Maryland to get that through last week.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's every state, even though Maryland has one right now, we're changing the rules because they're a little bit more conservative than I want when it comes to
Yeah.
being able to work with limits. Right now, there's limits on how much you can earn, how much you can make, and we're working to make that unlimited earning, unlimited assets.
Yeah. That's been a
There's
topic
no
before.
reason.
It's because you have to make way under a certain amount to, and if someone needs a caregiver, then what you would have to make up for that, um, you know, it's you either have to make less than 30,000 or over 100,000 to survive if you need a caregiver. It's
The Medicaid buying programs, especially with good policy behind it, like New Jersey just passed Medicaid buying laws that the governor signed into law last month. And now it's unlimited income, unlimited assets. there's no age requirement, upper age requirement, which
Right.
is good. But most states actually make you retire at age 65.
I mean, I probably can. I don't want to. Like,
Most people can't with a spinal cord injury.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I could if I didn't have a spinal cord injury, but especially with all the extra expenses we incur just for supplies and medical supplies and medical insurance, just functioning. Yeah.
Unfortunately, both of us picked the most expensive injury possible.
Right. And then to add to that, and we will talk about this in another episode, bladder cancer is one of the most, I was diagnosed, and that it's related to the spinal cord injury, and it's one of the most expensive diseases to treat or cure. And so there's just lots of layers to that.
I'm looking forward to those conversations.
Yeah, me too. So we at Numotion and are honored to have Josh lead what we call the Consumer Advisory Board. So it kind of follows along with Josh's whole theory on life and how he lives his life. And, Numotion, we're a supplier of custom wheelchairs. And so, and there are a lot of the way the system has been set up over the years. It was not very regulated. Then it was abused by some really bad players in the industry. There was some overcorrection in my opinion, by Medicare, and some of the hoops that we have to jump through for people who actually need this technology, whether we need a new chair or we need our wheelchairs repaired. In addition to that, so there's a lot of other improvements that could be made, because from the time that we get an order for a custom wheelchair to the time that it's delivered can be an extraordinarily long period of time. And so, Josh, I'll let you kind of take it from there to explain what the Consumer Advisory Board is and what the goals are.
So with the Consumer Advisory Board, it kind of all started out of a little frustration and just wanting to see improvements, and hearing from different community members that I know, just being active in the community. I have a lot of friends and that are within the spinal cord community that need wheelchairs and need all of those things to allow the world to function and move forward for us. But so I was getting a lot of feedback, and I did not think that the Numotion as a company was hearing it well enough. So I ended up approaching your CEO, Mike,
Mike Swinford,
and let him know that there's a lot that can be learned from the community if you are willing to hear from them, if you're willing to open up your doors and be able to take that feedback, whether it's positive, negative, whatever it is. Hearing it allows you to let the consumer, the customer, have a seat at the table and let their voice be a part of the business's journey. And when I suggested that with Mike, he just kind of jumped in full force, and we ended up getting 15 different people from around the country with different disabilities, with whether they have a disability or a family member with a disability. So we have all these different people from around the country with a variety of abilities, and now have a seat at the table where we discuss different conversations that I even had regarding Numotion, about service and repair, about advocacy and education, about all these important topics that will end up creating a better experience at the end of the day. And we've been having group meetings all of 2021. And we broke them down. We had a West Coast one, we had an East Coast, and we, from coast to coast, the love that went back and forth. There was just incredible conversations. And what I've really enjoyed about the process is how serious that leadership in Numotion and how involved they've been, and excited to hear from the community. And real changes have already been made so far, which just gives me so much hope that there's going to be more and more changes. But also at the end of the day, from the Consumer Advisory Board, the goal is to then be able to create an industry-wide white paper that can go to all the other CRT companies, so that it's not just Numotion that's making the changes that they're learning from, but everywhere. And that's just going to help more and more people in the community, which makes me very happy.
Yeah, I can tell you that. And so being on the inside, there were so many things that Numotion was trying to do, whether it was like get rid of prior authorization through different payers when it came to a repair. Like we shouldn't have to turn in paperwork and get approval and then order the parts when someone's chair's down and you're not functioning. So, and lots of trying to get that eval to delivery date, like cut that time, from in a third of what it has been traditionally by, black belt processing experts coming in and trying to figure out how we can cut days out of this process. And when CAB, the Consumer Advisory Board, was developed, Mike, I mean, knowing him and the senior leaders, I had the advantage of knowing that they do truly care and that they were going to want to listen and not going to be afraid to hear what's broken and what needs to be fixed. And because, if at the end of the day, like people could choose to be in a lot of different businesses, but if you're in the business of serving people with disabilities, you better have your heart better be in it. And
most businesses do have their heart in it. It's yes, they are business, but they want to serve an underserved community. And one of the things that I love the most with the Consumer Advisory Board, when we were talking about service and repair, people kept on saying like, yes, we needed a technician come out and they needed one little piece, a spare piece of like a screw, a nut, a bolt. And then Numotion ended up looking at what are the most commonly ordered products that day in, day out, people need. And basically before technician would come out, they would recognize that, they would place it, and then they'd have to come back again and put it on. In Numotion, they ended up signing to order $500,000 worth of spare parts to put it into all their trucks across the country, so that they would have it right then and there, so they didn't have to come back.
Yeah,
I thought that was just
really.
They listened to that and they invested in it, and they made that change, which I think is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and we're rolling out something called Field Connect. So we've broken CAB up into 3 separate little groups now, and we'll reconvene several times a year as a bigger group. And I facilitate the service and repair group, and Josh facilitates the advocacy group. So, and in service and repair, we have a new program that they're rolling out in some of the larger branches first, where we're going to use technology to help route our drivers, like whatever geographically makes the most sense and that is the most efficient. So we don't have techs like crisscrossing each other. If someone's already in that area, it's going to be, it's probably satellite technology, really fancy program to make sure that we are getting to people in the most efficient way possible, and then routing them around things like accidents and traffic jams. And it can send out automatic communications to customers and back to the office to let people know if someone's running late. Someone had a hard down, which means, somebody using a power chair is like totally stuck. And sometimes things have to be changed or juggled around. But that's one of many things. I think that when we are in these calls and we are listening to all of the different customers and hearing their frustrations about what's going wrong, and another fix that's kind of in the works.
And it's the better communication from both sides. That's a lot of things that we've been talking about, is that hearing what the consumer, the customer is facing, what's going on, what is happening, and what can we do to make a better experience. But at the same time, there's a lot of ins and outs to running a complex rehab technology company. There's a lot of rules, a lot of supply chain issues. There's a lot of different things that we found that if Numotion can communicate that a little bit more openly, it lets the customer and the consumer know what is happening and what's the delay, what's causing it. And instead of pointing fingers in every which way, we're able to kind of have a conversation together and be on the journey together. And that's it's another big thing that I'm very optimistic and hopeful that can come to the Consumer Advisory Board.
Yeah, I think that's true in any relationship, right? Having open communication, people might be able to understand and forgive a delay if they know what the reason is behind it.
And even if you know there's a delay, it's like constantly being updated about that. It gives you peace of mind that you're not forgotten, and it's just you're not falling through the cracks.
Yeah, yeah, and I can tell you that the whole senior leadership, like when the company is updated about things, like we have big group meetings. What's come from Consumer Advisory Board, and then the changes that are being implemented, those are being communicated to every single employee at Numotion, and it's of extreme importance to Mike and everyone else in the company,
that makes me very happy.
Yeah. And like I did a survey for my group, and if I put it's for the cab, like it's done, and like I get it, before the end of the day, the next day, like it's a priority for everybody in the company. So, and we're thankful that you stepped in to take a leadership role in that way. And Justin Richardson is not on this podcast, but he's the one that really between you and Josh, maybe between Josh and Justin, they really organized it and painstakingly selected, a diverse group of people, like you said, across the country, representing all different types of disabilities. And it's an impressive group of people.
Justin's amazing. I know he's just a force for good, and he's just a great leader, and it's been really fun working with him on it.
Yeah, I love him. He's in my department. He was one of my first podcast guinea pigs. We did our sex and dating with a disability together. And
just for anybody that doesn't know, Justin is in a wheelchair. He's a spinal cord injury, North Carolina. He's a great guy.
And he runs the Numotion Foundation, as well as having helped create and run the Consumer Advisory Board. So one other thing I wanted to touch on was tell us a little bit about, because you said accessibility, digital accessibility has kind of come to the forefront for you lately. You are working with Accessiby, and I kind of wanted to hear a little bit. We use them, actually. Numotion does for our web, our anything externally facing. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I last February, so 2021, I joined Accessiby as their consumer relations manager. And basically my role was just kind of like the Consumer Advisory Board. My role is to bring the voices of the community to have a seat at the table. So to help the company itself improve and grow and reach the community they're trying to serve. And what's been really fun about being in this role is the larger scale impact that can be had of making the internet more accessible. So a lot of people don't know this, but unfortunately, less than 2% of the internet meets accessibility guidelines. So that means we're talking about hundreds of millions of websites, where only about 7 million websites in the world actually are accessible.
Wow.
So that's 2%. And I know we can do better. And how are we going to do better? What conversations do we need to have? What solutions do we need to approach? And with Accessiby, they provide, so it's a full suite of services that they provide that basically goes after making the internet more accessible. So one of their flagship technologies is called an access widget. And a lot of people see them now. It's usually a little icon on a website. You go, you click it, and for the one that Accessiby has created, it creates all these different profiles for usability and accessibility. And basically, I always feel like it gives you like a custom experience to be able to navigate a website based on your own unique abilities. So for me, it's a superpower because it's working and giving you new abilities to be able to like experience a site to the best of your abilities. So like, let's say you have epilepsy. You could choose the epilepsy profile and it turns off all GIFs and flashing images on that site. So it doesn't trigger an episode.
Trigger it, yeah.
So, and let's say if you had ADHD, there's a profile for that creates a more focused area where it blurs out the top and the bottom. It makes it so that you can only really focus in the middle area, and it makes it so much easier to really like target what you need to look at. There's profiles for vision impairment, for motor impairment, for blind and for blind users, and it works with your different assistive technologies they use. So I use an on-screen keyboard a lot to navigate and tap through a site. I use a screen reader to be able to read things to me, and I love being able to utilize that with it. And then also I use voice dictation software. So web accessibility is about how do you navigate a site from start to finish and go to all the different parts of the site that the website creator created for people. A lot of times when you don't have an accessible website, you might not be able to go through a drop-down menu, or you might not be able to fill out a form because your voice dictation software can't actually fill out.
Which is really important too when you think about the voices of persons with disabilities. Like, how do we advocate for ourselves? How do we increase our numbers when, like, it makes me think about websites being built for the purposes of advocacy and having, like, if we're doing a sign-on, something where we need a petition, or we need people to be able to access the drop-down menu. Like, it's to not make that accessible, like, it kind of infringes on our civil rights to a degree to be able to have our voices heard. It's so important.
Well, it's just making your website accessible is just as important of making your storefront business accessible. If you're not opening your doors to a population, you're technically closing doors on them. And we're 1 in 4 people in the U.S. Are considered to have a disability, and that's 61 million people. It's a lot of people, and obviously it's a variety of abilities and disabilities within that group, but it's still a huge number. And if you don't open your door, there's a huge untapped population that a lot of businesses are not being able to welcome.
Whether that's customers or as employees. I mean, like on so many different levels.
But it's like people with disabilities, what the brilliance about us is that we are the most brand loyal community. When we're taken care of, we come back again and again as repeat customers. We are natural advocates and mentors. We recommend it to our friends, our family. When we have a good experience that like benefits our quality of life, we tell people about it. So businesses that get and want to invite people with disabilities to make their websites accessible or make their businesses accessible. It's not just about compliance; it's about smart business and doing the right thing. But smart business.
I know that I had a restaurant owner tell me the other day, because it's like ever since I've lived here for 40 years, this really popular little Italian spot, their parking lot is not accessible. They don't have accessible bathrooms. And he's like, well, we were grandfathered in. And I was like, really? Like it is 2022. Like now they're adding on and they're going to have to make it accessible. I still had a few comments to make when I popped in there. And I was like, besides the fact that you've missed out on my business for the last 40 years and I'm super fun, and I would never.
You are super fun. He's been missing that.
I literally said that to him and he's like, oh God, okay. I think that we're probably going to do multiple episodes together. I already know we've got our next one planned. And I am your smile, your spirit is infectious. Your kindness, just bleeds through you. That before your injury, after, I'm sure your parents always knew you were going to be something really special. And I'm very thankful for all that you do for our community, for people with spinal cord injuries or wheelchair users in general, and even more so to be your friend.
Karen, that was very beautiful. The truth is that, yes, this injury kind of changed everything. But at the same time, being able to move forward, the friendships that I've been able to make, that's what makes it so, it's like the icing on the cake when it comes to being able to keep moving forward and giving back. But the friendships like you and others. It's just, I cherish those. So thank
Me
you for
too.
being in my life.
Oh, me too. I feel the same way. Yeah. I think that that's it. And it's the one thing that people don't really understand. It's like, at this point, I wouldn't trade it because there's just something that it just adds, I don't know, like you said, a new layer of like love and appreciation that I think maybe some people miss out on. So until next time.
Until next time.
Okay. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Take care, Karen.
Bye. Bye.